I always thought the sound of a flatline was the worst thing a nurse could hear, until the night the corpse opened its eyes and whispered my name. If you believe some lives are bound by fate instead of chance, if you've ever felt that a single act of mercy could rewrite your destiny, then like this story and subscribe before we begin, because what happened next made me question everything I knew about life, death, and the monsters that hide in between. The storm had been raging for hours when the call came through, a medevac inbound, high-profile patient, critical condition. My shift had already gone over by 3 hours, and my hands still smelled like antiseptic and burnt coffee, but the supervisor's tone left no room for protest. Trauma Bay 2. Now, I didn't realize then that walking into that room would end my human life as I knew it. The patient arrived shrouded in black sheets, surrounded by guards who looked like they'd stepped out of a nightmare. Pale, silent, eyes that reflected delight like predators. No vitals, no ID, just one word on the transfer slip, Kale. The sheets were slick with blood that didn't look human. It shimmered faintly, like crushed rubies under a full moon. He's coding, I said, instinct kicking in as I grabbed the paddles, ignoring the unease crawling up my spine. The guards flinched when the defibrillator charged. You can't use that on him, one hissed, but I pressed anyway. 1 shock, 2 shocks, 3, nothing. What is he? I demanded. Their silence was worse than any answer. His chest was still, but his face, it didn't look dead. More like sleeping, trapped in some cruel spell. And God's help me, I thought he was beautiful. That's when the lead guard leaned close, his voice low and trembling. If he dies, the king will tear this city apart. Do something, human. Something inside me snapped. Maybe it was exhaustion, maybe guilt from the last patient I couldn't save, the one whose chart I'd signed wrong. The reason I was on this graveyard shift at all. I yanked off my gloves, sliced my palm open with the scalpel, and pressed it to the boy's lips. You need blood? Take mine. I muttered, half prayer, half dare. The monitors screamed to life. His body arched off the table, the air around us humming like a struck wire. Every light in the room flickered out, leaving only the glow of his veins pulsing crimson. My knees buckled under the force of it. His hand shot out, cold as stone, gripping my wrist. His lips parted, and though no sound came out, I felt the word form inside my mind. Alara. My name. Then blackness swallowed me whole. When I woke, the trauma bay was empty. The smell of ozone and blood clung to the air. The floor where his body had been was scorched in the outline of wings. Ash gray, feathered, and human. My palm still bled, but when I pressed the wound closed, it refused to stop, like something in me had been unlocked. The hospital lights flickered again as I stumbled into the hall. A janitor passed me without meeting my eyes, muttering, "You shouldn't be here." Before I could ask what he meant, 2 men in black coats appeared at the end of the corridor. Alara Voss, one said. Not asked, stated. Come with us. Their voices carried a chill that cut deeper than the wind howling outside. Is the patient alive? I asked, but they only exchanged a look and gestured toward the exit. The king requests your presence. The what? But before I could resist, they moved faster than I thought possible, one grabbing my arm, the other pressing something cold and metallic to my neck. The world blurred. When my vision cleared, I wasn't in the hospital anymore. The room was vast, vaulted ceilings, black marble floors, air thick with the scent of iron and something older. Torches burned blue against stone walls etched with symbols that seemed to shift when I looked too long. And on a dais of obsidian sat the man they called king. I knew it without introduction. The weight of his gaze froze me mid-breath. His presence was gravity itself, pulling all warmth from the room. You fed my son, he said, each word measured, lethal. I tried to explain how I didn't know what else to do, but he rose, and his shadow fell over me like nightfall. Your blood revived him. Human blood should have killed him. He stepped closer, eyes gleaming like polished silver. That means it's not human. My heartbeat thundered in my ears, and for a fleeting second, I thought I saw something in his expression, not anger, but fear. Then he reached out, brushing his fingers against my wounded palm. The blood there shimmered faintly, as if alive. You've bound yourself to the air of the vampire court, he murmured. His life flows through you now. My voice cracked. Then unbind it. The king's lips curved. Not a smile, not really. That, he said softly, is no longer possible. And just like that, I realized I hadn't saved a boy. I had resurrected a prince. And in doing so, I'd signed my life and my blood away to the darkness. When I woke again, the air was colder, thick with incense, smoke, and the faint copper scent of blood that no amount of perfume could disguise. The ceiling above me shimmered faintly, carved with sigils that pulsed in rhythm with my heartbeat, as though the room itself was watching me breathe. The hospital was gone. The machines, the human sounds, the safety of ordinary life, all gone. I lay in a bed too soft to be real, beneath sheets that glowed faintly under the moonlight seeping through a window barred with black iron vines. And across from me, on another bed, lay the boy, the one whose heart I had restarted with my blood. Only now, he didn't look like a boy. His skin was pale to the edge of transparency, his lashes so dark they cast small shadows on his cheeks, and a faint crimson light pulsed beneath the veins in his throat, beating in time with mine. A thin silver tube connected us, my blood feeding into him still. "You feed him even now," came a voice from the darkness, low and resonant. I turned, and there he was, the vampire king himself. His eyes, pale as winter, gleamed in the candlelight as he stepped closer. His very presence felt like pressure, as if the air had to make room for him. "What are you?" he asked. "A nurse," I whispered, clutching the blanket to my chest. "You are not," he said quietly. "Human blood cannot sustain royal lineage. Yet my son lives." He gestured to the boy. "Look." When I did, I gasped. Kale's reflection shimmered in the polished glass of a cabinet. Not fully, but half of one, as though the light itself couldn't decide if it should obey him. "Vampires don't cast reflections." "You've altered him," the king murmured, wonder and fury braided in his tone. "Changed what centuries of pure blood could not. And yet, he breathes." For the next several days, I wasn't permitted to leave. Guards posted outside my chamber, eyes sharp, hands resting on blades of silver. Servants entered and exited in silence, leaving bowls of fruit I couldn't eat and glasses of water that tasted faintly of iron. When I slept, I dreamed of Kale's heartbeat echoing in mine. When I woke, I could feel him somewhere near, his pulse tugging faintly at the edge of my consciousness, like a string drawn between us. On the fourth night, the king returned. He stood by the bed where Kale slept and watched me as if I were a puzzle no one had solved in 1,000 years. "Your blood," he said, "is not mortal." I tried to laugh, but it came out hollow. If it's anything special, no one told me. I was a nurse on probation, working night shifts to pay for my mistakes. The king's expression didn't change, but his eyes narrowed slightly. "There are records," he said. "Buried deep, but real. A bloodline once extinguished. Hybrids, they were called. Neither human nor vampire, born of both and belonging to neither. They were hunted for what flowed in their veins. Now I find their blood running in yours." I shook my head. "That's impossible." "And yet," he said, glancing at Kale, "here lies proof." That night, as I lay in the dark, the bond began to ache, an invisible thread burning between us, tugging harder with each heartbeat. I couldn't breathe. When I sat up, Kale's eyes were open, not red like his father's, but gold, bright, liquid gold that glowed from within. "Don't be afraid," he said, though his lips never moved. His voice was inside my head, soft and young and unbearably calm. "You saved me." The air between us thickened until I felt him, not beside me, but in me. Images flashed across my mind like lightning. A palace on fire, blades of silver, his own father screaming his name as arrows rained down. Then silence, suffocation, and a strange warmth. My blood, pulling him back. I gasped as the vision broke. He reached for me, his hand small, trembling, impossibly cold. "You saw," he whispered in thought. "Everything." I could only nod. For a moment, we just sat there, two strangers sharing the same pulse, the same breath. "They'll come for you soon," he said. "They're afraid of what you've made me." By dawn, I heard it. The muffled arguments beyond the door, the word abomination whispered more than once. When the king entered again, his face was shadowed by something like regret. "The council demands your relocation," he said. "They fear the bond." "You mean they fear me?" I said. "No," he answered. "They fear what you might awaken." Two guards appeared behind him. "You cannot leave the citadel," but you cannot stay near him either. His life depends on your blood, yet your proximity makes him unstable. Unstable, I echoed. He's a child. The king's eyes flicked toward Kale. He is the heir to an empire built on control. You've given him something none of us possess, humanity. It terrifies them. The guards moved forward. Kale's eyes snapped open, glowing like dawn breaking through fog. Don't go. His voice echoed through my mind, filled with panic. The room trembled, the windows fracturing as if the glass itself obeyed his fear. Stop, I whispered, trying to reach him, but the guards dragged me toward the door. You don't understand. If you separate us, it'll hurt him. As they pulled me into the corridor, I looked back one last time. The boy stood barefoot on the marble floor, tears glowing red as they rolled down his cheeks. Behind him, the king, his own father, stood still, caught between command and compassion. His hand lifted halfway, as if to stop them, but then fell uselessly to his side. I'm sorry, he said quietly, almost to himself. And in that moment, I realized something awful. I hadn't just saved a dying boy. I had become the pulse of a kingdom that feared its own heart. And somewhere deep inside, that heart was beginning to beat again, through me. They came for me before dawn, cloaked in silence and steel. The king's council had voted. The human bond was to be severed by force. I was dragged through the citadel's shadowed corridors, wrists bound with silver thread that burned like fire. Somewhere deep inside the palace, alarms echoed, distant but growing closer. Kale was awake. I could feel him, his panic thrumming inside my chest like a second heart, his fear searing through every nerve as if my body were his. The guards hauled me into a circular chamber lit by 100 candles. In the center stood an altar carved from black stone, veins of red light pulsing beneath its surface. It must be done, said Lord Varos, the council's high seer. The prince's soul must be freed from the human impurity. I screamed as they forced me onto the altar, pressing silver against my neck. The pain lanced through me, sharp and endless, but before the blade could fall, the torches flared blue, and the doors exploded inward. Kale stood there, eyes blazing gold, wings of shadow and light unfurling behind him like a sunrise tearing through night. Touch her, he said, his voice echoing both aloud and in their minds. And I'll burn this kingdom to ash. The guards fell back as the king himself appeared. No armor this time. Only a cloak of black velvet, streaked with blood. He looked at his son, then at me. It's too late, he said, but not to stop him, to prepare him. The bond has crossed blood and soul. If she dies, you die? If you die, she becomes hollow. There's only one way forward now. He stepped into the circle, slicing his own palm, and let his blood drip onto the altar beside mine. The red light rose around us, wrapping us in a cocoon of fire and mist. By my crown and my curse, he said, voice breaking like thunder, I'd bind this union. Let the mortal and immortal be one, so that neither may be used against the other. The spell struck like lightning. I felt Kale's power surge through me, burning away fear, stitching our hearts together until the line between them vanished. The ceiling cracked, spilling the first rays of dawn into the chamber. The vampires screamed. The light should have killed them, but it didn't. The rays hit Kale first, then me, and the two of us shone brighter, our merged blood scattering the sunlight into gold. The attacking guards dropped their weapons, shielding their faces as warmth filled the room for the first time in centuries. When it was over, the king sank to one knee. The curse is broken, he whispered, staring at the sunlight on his hands. Around us, the citadel trembled, centuries of darkness peeling away. Kale turned to me, his golden eyes soft. You gave me life, he said. Now we share it. His hand brushed mine, and I felt the bond settle. Not a chain, but a heartbeat that echoed between us. Later, when the fires were out and the dawn had risen fully, the king placed his crown upon Kale's head, then stepped aside. Rule with her, he said, his voice low but steady. Rule is something new. And when the court bowed, vampire and human alike, I realized the truth of what I'd done. I hadn't just saved a dying prince. I'd ended an age of darkness. And though the bond tied my fate to his forever, as the first true sunrise in 1,000 years poured over the marble halls, I knew I'd finally done what I'd failed to do all my life. I had healed something that was never meant to be saved, and in doing so, I had become part of it.